and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. My name is Omar Pinto, the host of the Share Podcast and a founding member of the SRC, the Share Recovery Community. In the SRC, we have a number of live online recovery meetings every week on a number of different topics. This podcast is only one example of the content provided to our members. In this meeting, a chapter of the Tao Te Ching is discussed every week as to how it relates to recovery. I hope you enjoy this week's podcast episode.
Hey guys, Buddy C. This is the May 14th, 2020 Tao Te Ching meeting for the Share Recovery Community. Today we have Kate and Marla and Cindy and Kurt and Rob and Craig and Paul. Good to have you guys today.
Morning, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Kurt.
Hey, Marla. How's it going?
Good. Everything's okay.
Is it me or does Kurt gets younger every time you see him?
He does.
Man.
You learn that softening. They've got a setting on Zoom now that you can hit, and it softens your picture up and makes you look better. And
yeah,
you figured that out.
No, I haven't figured it out, but I will.
Actually,
move away too. You know, that would work to move away from the camera a little more. I think that helps you too.
Quit telling all my secrets, please.
I'm sorry.
Kate, I will compliment you. You just look radiant.
She does, doesn't she?
Yeah, the right after you went through all your stuff, it's like you came out the other side and just radiate now. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Gotta give it where it's due.
If you would like to join into this meeting is recorded every Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. You can join in with this Tao Te Ching discussion. Go to omarpinto.com and follow the links to the Share Recovery Community. You can try the community for $1 for the first month and then $12 a month after that. And check it out and see if it's for you. Lots of good meetings almost every day. Check it out if it's something that interests you, especially during this time of isolation that we have. And it looks like it's not stopping. It is in my area some, but we're having local meetings now, local AA meetings. We're not all going. I'm not going back till after June or after the 1st of June for sure. How about you guys? Is anyone having local meetings starting up? Craig's not. Everybody's shaking their heads no?
No, we've been told that there's, although the UK Prime Minister is trying to relax some things, the Scottish First Minister has turned around and says nobody's doing anything until I tell you. We're still grounded. I'm 42 and I'm grounded. It's really the only time that I've actually wanted to be grounded. But no, there's nothing happening. There's nothing starting up. They've actually increased the employee retention scheme till October at a time. So realistically, I'm not in a rush to do anything anytime. I'm loving the Zoom meetings. I'm loving the connection we're making on Zoom. And I used to get ridiculed quite a bit from the guys from my home group because I do most of my stuff online. And you know, it's good seeing these guys actually get involved in the Zoom stuff as well. So I'm kind of hoping it continues after the lockdown as well, because it gives people it lets people know that there's still that connectivity after the meetings. There's always something on. We don't have to wait the next week to catch up with the home group. We can jump on Zoom. We can jump on Skype, WhatsApp, just whatever. Always a connectivity there. So that's where we are.
On this locally here, the governor spoke yesterday, so they're allowing opening it up a little bit. Like churches can have 10% capacity. So I would assume that the meetings will be about the same. So it's not much change here.
How would you police that? You just say first 10% in and the rest, you can go home.
They're all lined up outside, right?
They did, at our clubhouse, they did chairs they told me they did chairs that were separated out. So they did all of that. And they filled up their chairs Sunday, but I told them I wasn't coming back. I said, I'll be later when I do. So Cindy, you're saying Texas is doing a phased opening?
Yeah, they started with 25% capacity for the restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving it to 50%, and the nail salons and the hair salons are open, and the gyms are opening on Monday. And I really just think that the governor knows that we're the most armed population in the United States. And they just decided we didn't have any more patients, and they were going to let it open. That's what I think happened.
I'm glad that in Georgia, so far, our numbers are still dropping. So that's good. Because I thought by now we'd see a rise if that was the case. I knew he was under the media had him under a big spotlight because he was out front and starting and all. So I wanted to, I'm glad that that's happening because we need some relief, but I think that for meetings though, I think that we're going to continue with this, a lot of online meetings that we didn't have before. I think that's going to be something that continues on past this. Like Craig said, people locally, they wouldn't question me about it, but they really didn't think you could sponsor someone via Zoom, or Skype. They just thought that wouldn't work. You had to be local, breathing the same air kind of thing,
What happened to the open-mindedness?
Yeah. Well, we're all somewhat closed-minded, Kurt, So.
For sure.
I think also, especially when I don't know about what it's like for you guys in the States, and maybe the same for Craig as well. But in where I live, it's all very much the same type of people, and so in joining the SRC, it wasn't just getting online meetings so I'd go from home or anywhere. It's like I get to meet people all over the world, and the diversity is just something that I could get originally where I originally got sober. You do not get that around here.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says the same thing. And that I don't believe this is an area that will change very quickly. People don't leave this county really ever.
Yeah, I look at it this way. I never would have met any of you had it not been for this platform. So I'm just so grateful for that.
Yeah, it just really has expanded my recovery too, Paul. I'm really grateful for everyone I've met online and everything that we've experienced. Craig, you have something, sir?
Yeah, I'm like Cindy. I can't wait for the hairdressers to open again. My wife's been cutting my hair for the past month, and it's the same do all the time.
I like your look. It's kind of like a bit of almost a bushy caveman type thing.
It's kind of like
I noticed it when you did your walk the other Friday. It's quite nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fuzzy tennis ball.
No, you really need to give yourself more credit. It's really quite attractive.
There you go.
There we have it. Stop talking, Craig. Just take it and go.
Right.
Don't respond. Just say thank you and stop.
Thank you.
I want to mention that there's y'all started just a catch out, like an all recovery meeting for Monday through Friday, right? What time is that? Y'all want to talk about that, please?
Sure. It's Monday through Friday at noon Central, 1 Eastern time. There's usually anywhere from 10 to 12 people there. And it's become a real solid meeting with a lot of good discussion. A lot of us have a 12-step background, but we're not there now. And so it encompasses a lot of different areas. We talk about gratitude. We talk about recovery tools. We talk about all kinds of different things. And it's been good. It's been a good mix of newcomers, people on day one, and people with 10 years. So it's been a good meeting. It has saved me through this pandemic.
What's the URL for that, Cindy?
dailyrecoverymeeting.com.
dailyrecoverymeeting.com. Okay,
Yep.
Good. And then I've got a nightly AA meeting that we started March 15th, actually, that the URL to go directly to it is zoomaameetings.com. And you have to be logged into a Zoom account to get in. Like that's what we use to keep the Zoom bombers out. So no password, but you have to log into a free account to get into the meeting. So if you're on a phone, it's not a problem. You may have to sign up for an account if you're on a computer. So, but that's the URL for that. And fortunately, last week I turned that over to a group conscience. So as of next week, I think we'll have people every night sharing. So I'm out of the loop on the sharing. I'm not that involved. So that's great. But it's been, it's really easier to hit these online meetings too, because you don't have to drive. You don't have to plan. You don't have to get ready. You just show up. You can pop in, at time or a minute after, and then you're off immediately. It doesn't take 2 hours and the whole thing. So it's really much easier. And what I found in this AA meeting that we're doing, we had 40 people night before last. I mean, on just a night during the week. We do a speaker meeting every Saturday night. And had as many as 80. But I'm just amazed at the old timers that have found this, that have 30, 40 years. And they're, it's funny, we gotta have one guy that he'll sit with his forehead, showing his forehead on the computer. And we call him Forehead Dan, because, things like that, that you find, because you still have to have nicknames for people because, you don't have their last name. Some of them, they put their last initial. Which Tim? Quiet Tim? Yeah, I know which Tim you're talking about. It's been enough meetings now where we're getting to know the people. But we've got a lot of people, Marla, from Michigan that come to that meeting. Mark comes sometimes from the Recovered Cast, and his sponsor comes. Actually, his sponsor, Russ and Linda, his wife, they do our speakers on Saturday night. So they started taking that responsibility. So there's a lot of, is it Michiganders? Is that the right phrase?
Or Michiganians.
Michiganians. Yeah. My accent works real good with that one. But a lot of Michiganians on that call, like probably 6 or 8. So we have people all over. We've had people from New Zealand and a lot of Canadians. Some Canadians have come, and then some from the UK too. So lots of good folks. We've had people new in recovery too, that 3 days and 5 days. And we had one guy who came in our first meeting. He found us somewhere on Facebook. And our first meeting, he said, I've been out of rehab. He had like 7 days or something, or 10 days. He said, I went to rehab, got out, started going to meetings, and they closed the clubhouse, and I don't know what to do. He didn't have any support, didn't have a sponsor, didn't have anything. Yeah, could you imagine that, Kurt?
Oh my gosh, so tough right now.
So he got a sponsor. He's working the steps, and he's been every night, and you can see the growth,
That's cool.
It's really good. It's an online community. I think it's going to continue. They want to continue it ongoing after all this. So more power to them if that's what they want to do. So, but
it's been difficult enough, having experience.
But I can look back on gratitude and say, God's taken me through stuff before, and I've made it. So I have no doubt I'm going to make it through this too. 81st chapter of the Tao Te Ching. Kate, do you want to read for us, ma'am?
Sure.
All right.
Yep. Truthful words are not beautiful. Beautiful words are not truthful. Good men do not argue. Those who argue are not good. Those who know are not learned. The learned do not know. The sage never tries to store things up. The more he does for others, the more he has. The more he gives to others, the greater his abundance. The Tao of heaven is pointed but does no harm. The Tao of the sage is work without effort. Second translation. True words aren't eloquent. Eloquent words aren't true. Wise men don't need to prove their point. Men who need to prove their point aren't wise. The master has no possessions. The more he does for others, the happier he is. The more he gives to others, the wealthier he is. The Tao nourishes by not forcing. By not dominating, the master leads. Third translation. True words do not sound beautiful. Beautiful sounding words are not true. Wise men don't need to debate. Men who need to debate are not wise. Wise men are not scholars, and scholars are not wise. The master desires no possessions. Since the things she does are for the people, she has more than she needs. The more she gives to others, the more she has for herself. The Tao of heaven nourishes by not forcing. The Tao of the wise person acts by not competing. Final translation. The truth isn't flashy. Flashy words aren't true. Educated people aren't always smart. Smart people don't always have an education. Good people don't argue. People who argue aren't good. The masters don't hang on to things. They're always doing something for other people, so they always have more to give. They give away whatever they have, so what they have is worth more. If you want to get right with Tao, help other people, don't hurt them. The masters always work with people, never against them.
Thoughts? I want to read the Jonathan Starr translation. Words born of the mind are not true. True words are not born of the mind. Those who have virtue do not look for faults. Those who look for faults have no virtue. Those who come to know it do not rely on learning. Those who rely on learning do not come to know it. The sage sees the world, listen to this one, the sage sees the world as an expansion of his own self. So what need has he to accumulate things? By giving to others, he gains more and more. By serving others, he receives everything. Heaven gives, and all things turn out for the best. The sage lives, and all things go as Tao goes. All things move as the wind blows. I like that translation. Any comments? How about, let's look at this translation. True words aren't beautiful. Beautiful words are not true. My note with that is the truth can be painful. Wise men don't need to prove their point. Men who need to prove their point aren't wise. For me, that's one of the real gifts of sobriety was, and I'm still concerned of others' opinions of me, but I remember years ago, if you disagreed with me, I wanted to make sure that you understood my position on anything. And if we disagreed, we were going to discuss it to a point that I was sure I had proven that I was right if you did not agree with me.
I struggle with this, actually. It's baffling to interpret what that, especially the first piece, actually means when it talks about words. Because I understand the not accumulating of things, because we don't need things, these extraneous objects, things to give us our worth. We've learned that doesn't provide any sense of being, of wholeness, of wholeheartedness. The notion of we give it away and get back, more is for those in recovery kind of almost second nature, because the essence of service and helping others is really what drives us in our own recovery, because by taking ourselves away from us, self, takes us away from pain. From my example, I can give you an example of the last few days. I've been wrapped up in myself, but I've been going through a really challenging time during the pandemic, and it has all been self-focused. The idea of getting out of self is a way of kind of overcoming that. I get smart people educated. It's the last translation that kind of makes more sense to me, because educated people aren't always smart. Smart people don't always have an education. Educated people can learn things from a book can memorize things from a book and not necessarily understand the context or exactly what's being trying to be said. And yet they can really start and gain a qualification. So you can have as many qualifications as long as your arm. You can be a doctor. You can have so many letters after your name, and yet you're not smart in the way of the world. And I found that personally when I walked into my first NA meeting. I had to say, I was one of these intellectual, arrogant people with a massive ego complex because I had X, Y, Z degrees. I had to learn that I didn't know it all. And in fact, I was never going to know it all, and I knew very little. And I met people that had barely, that could barely read and write, that were going to school, that were 50 years old, were going to school to learn to read and write. And they taught me more than the people that had the letters after their names because they'd experienced more. The bit that kind of screws with my head a bit is that the truth isn't flashy and flashy words aren't true. I don't know. For me, it kind of says anybody can bullshit their way. I don't want to name a name, but quite a good person in recovery, well known, likes to use eloquent and lots of different long words, and he does this and he kind of bullshits his way through the media. And I'm not attracted to that type of person. And I just think, just cut to the fucking chase and just say it how it is. Because I'm a say it how it is type of person now. Whereas before, I might use my words to try and make it sound as if I knew more. Yeah, yes, you are right, Craig. Make it sound as if I knew more than I actually did. And it's kind of like you can hide behind big words and make it sound like you fucking know what you're talking about. But actually, it's being able to see through that. And I think perhaps that's what it's saying. With increasing years and increasing experience and increase in dealing with different people, you get to the point where you can see through people's shit. You get to see the real person and you get to know what is being said without needing to actually hear the words. You can just see it. Yeah, I think that's what I'm maybe trying to say. Everything doesn't come through words. Does that make any sense? Really sorry.
The Star translation talked about head knowledge versus heart knowledge. And I think that's a lot of what that's talking about. Kurt, you still have something?
Well, I was just going to follow up with you, buddy, where, it's a lifetime of trying to prove my point, trying to prove I'm right. And that I'm talking decades, and, it just doesn't change overnight. I'm struggling with true words are not beautiful.
Yeah.
Because isn't the truth the only thing that matters? So
let me help you with that, Kurt.
Yeah.
Or you got something, Craig, on that, and then I'll talk about what else. Go ahead.
Yeah, I believe that's about intention. We can say all these beautiful words, but we don't mean them. If we're just really saying things to make it look like we know what we're talking. AA is full of cliches. Recovery is full of all these cliches. And I think unless you've actually got the intention behind it, that's when true words aren't beautiful. If you have the ability to be able to sit down with somebody on a one-to-one basis and say to people, like, this is, let's look at a sponsor-sponsee relationship. A sponsee can come to you with anything, and as a sponsor, it's my responsibility to turn around and say, okay, this is where I view it, and I'm going to give you my honest and open answer. I'm not going to hide anything from you, and I'm not going to tell you anything that's going to be detrimental to your recovery or detrimental to the way that you're going. If there's a particular issue that keeps cropping up, then I'll address that and say, listen, we need to draw the line here, and we need to address this particular issue. If there's something that you're struggling with, let's sit and talk about it now. But it's being able to sit down and have those conversations with people. I don't build people up to something they're not. I don't build myself up to something I'm not. I'll tell you openly and I'll tell you honestly. I believe it's all to do with the intentions that's behind it. Not to make me look good, not to make me look spiritual, not to make me look fantastic, but it's to help you. It's to get you to that area where you can see yourself, what you need to see.
I think I know exactly what you're saying, Craig. The one little part I have an issue with is around intentions, because I have I'll speak for myself and also a sponsee that we both want to be judged on our intentions and not our actions.
Yeah.
And I think this is more about, not talking so much and actually embodying some of these things. So, yeah.
Can I jump to the Derek Lynn translation just quickly?
Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
This is very timely here. Kurt, that word for beautiful, it could be translated several ways. Truthful words are not beautiful. Truthful words are not pleasing. They're not fine. They're not good. They're not kind. Truthful words are not kind. Truthful words are not sweet. Truthful words are not fine sounding. They're not showy. In other words, a lot of times I've had to tell the truth. Well, it's like enabling bad behavior. Sometimes love says things that's not pleasant. I think that for me, that's where that's coming from is, sometimes I have to, I know with my kids, the most loving thing I could do is tell them something that was not easy for them to hear.
Right.
Or, I think that's, for me, that's where that lands. Craig, you got something from Derek Lynn?
Yeah, just on that topic, the one biggest piece of advice I can always take from when I started sponsoring people was my sponsor saying to me, look, sometimes you're going to need to tell people some things that they don't want to hear. Sometimes you're going to have to say things that are truthful. But it's like us when we come into addiction. We're in such a state of denial that we don't want to believe that this is the truth. Derek Lynn talks about his third line talks about debating. He says those who are good do not debate, and those who do debate are not good. And what he talks about with that is that those who are skillful in the art of living recognize the futility of argument and refrain from engaging in such debates. Sages let actions reveal their virtues. They have no need to explain themselves with words. Sometimes we think we're helping friends by arguing with them, but because this brings contention into the relationship, it can do more harm than good. People are rarely at the best when a debate causes them to become defensive and stubborn. It would be better for us to leave the matter alone and wait for the right time to approach the subject. So again, there's the intention behind, am I going to debate this just to prove that I'm right on something?
Prove I think I'm right.
Maybe I think, yeah. It's not, yeah, it goes back to perception. I know that I'm right, I think.
Yeah, I've really had to work on when I'm attacked not to respond. It's so easy to respond, and it's all the time with anything, is that pushback and learning to just not, I don't do well every time, but learning not to push back as much and working toward no pushback at all. But I think that's a big part of that too, because when I attack someone, I'm really attacking me. Is what I'm doing. When I defend, really that's a type of attack. I'm better off just letting it go, and because it doesn't accomplish anything. Because if I'm defending, I'm past the point. So, comments?
Yeah, this discussion reminds me of something a coworker told me a couple months ago. Me and him both have to see our boss every day, and the boss works out of his home, so he's not at the office, which is probably a good thing for both of us. But my coworker came back a couple months ago from seeing the boss, and he said, "How come he always fights with me, but he never fights with you?" And I said, "Well, think about it. You're the one who engages him in the argument. I don't play that game." So he said, "You're right." He thought about it. He said, "You're right." And ever since then, I think he's had fewer arguments with the boss. So maybe he's thinking about it.
It takes two to fight, Paul.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're fighting alone, it doesn't last long. Go ahead,
That's
Mark.
also you making the world better, Paul, by your behavior. That's paying it forward in life, is you just change somebody because of the way you are. That's godlike.
That's really, too, a good example of what this first stanza, I think, is talking about, is that we share from our experience, not from our head knowledge, but our heart knowledge. And our heart knowledge is our experience. So, Paul, what you did was you were the wise man in that first stanza that time.
Yeah, now don't get me wrong. I have my disagreements with the boss, and
Sure.
I don't agree with everything he says. But I also know that I know that first of all, he is the boss. I keep that in mind. He does. He could decide to get rid of me tomorrow if he wanted to. So it's a little bit of self-preservation on my part. But I also find that over the last several years, I think I've gained the boss's respect by not engaging with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he tends to take my opinion a little more seriously than my coworker who is just constantly picking for a fight.
And what you've done, Paul, is and this is something that I think is a big part of this, having this don't know mind, this idea that you're going to go about things openly, is opening your heart to people and not just assuming that you're right about everything. That's another big part of that. Craig, you have something, sir?
I was just, before Craig goes, in the bigger picture of the Tao, which is why we're here, is you're talking about emptiness, about being empty so that you can receive, I think.
Yeah,
I agree, Marla. Yeah.
It's not attending every argument that you're invited to, which was a big thing for me to accept the fact that I don't have to get involved in every single discussion. If it piques an interest, then sometimes it's better just to sit and listen. Unless I actually know what's going on, then I can get involved. But just to the point where I'm just giving my piece. I'm not giving advice, and I'm not giving suggestions. And I know when to back off.
None of us are good listeners. We need to be better listeners too, to be empty.
Really, giving someone the right to their opinion really gives them, that's a form of love. That's a form of love.
It's giving them the right to be wrong.
Yeah.
I was just sort of thinking, I'm not sure I'll say this right, but I think where it gets complicated or difficult for all of us is like when you think about recovery or religion or spirituality, we all have an experience that's so personal to us that it sometimes is hard to convey that to other people. And sometimes it's hard for some of us to leave space for others because our recovery or our spirituality or our life experience is so different that there's more than one form of truth that can exist.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Cindy. Yeah. That started with me with what Craig said, with giving other people the right to be wrong. And I would count them. I'd say, I'm going to give 10 people today the right to be wrong. You're number one. You're number two. That is so arrogant. But that started me in that direction. So that moves from you have the right to be wrong to, I had to move to 10, Craig. It was 5 at first, but I ran out super quick. I ran out in the first 10 minutes, so I had to bump the number up. But it moved from you have the right to be wrong to you have the right to your opinion to your opinion's none of my business to, you might be right. And that's where freedom is, though, in you might be right. But cracking that door of willingness, some type of willingness there, of intolerance, I guess, whatever way you want to describe it. But that really was a big part of it, giving people that right to their own opinion, and that and their opinion is none of my business. And the great thing is, I don't have to defend my opinion. If they want to attack me, they can attack. I don't care. I don't have to defend, and nor do I have to convince them of anything. That's not my job. Craig?
It's about being impartial to everybody as well. You know, you treat everybody the exact same way. You don't treat somebody else completely different just because they're still in active addiction, whereas somebody's recovering. You know, there's always that. There needs to be that consistency to the way that we treat people, the way we communicate to people, and the way that we love people as well. Just to finish off what Derek Lynn was saying about the in his translation, he talks about the Tao of sages assists and does not contend. He says the positive uplifting Tao of heaven benefits all things. The rain waters all plants. The sun warms everyone, which I think we really should be doing to each other as well, not just singling one person out because of way of behaving or they're acting out in a particular way. In emulating this, we also seek to benefit all people and refrain from hurting them with criticism or contention.
Which is more difficult, to give someone $20 or to give them the right to their opinion? I would give $20 every time.
Well,
yeah.
Jesus says, what's more difficult, me to be able to forgive somebody their sins or say get up and walk? Yeah. And just to prove them wrong, he'd done both of them.
Yeah.
What's so challenging about giving somebody else the right to have an opinion? And the thing is, I'm coming at it from a long time kind of liberal background. So this was kind of part of my own personality developing once I left home, because my parents my mother, sorry, I need to be fair about that. My mother drilled into me this conservative middle class, you must act in this way and not stray from it. So when I went to university, my views became very liberal, and actually when I came into recovery and worked, whatever it was I worked, especially in the last couple of years, my views have become very liberal, and to be able to give someone the space to kind of say whatever it is they want to say has almost, in the length of my recovery, become easier, because I see that hearing people and holding space for people is so important, even if you disagree with them. And so I guess because I'm from the other end of the spectrum, if you like, in terms of conservatism and beliefs and the way I've acted and where I've been brought, do you know what? It's probably a rebellion from my mother, you know, being and acting in this certain way.
You're being kind. You're being kind in a rebellious way. Is that what you're doing, Kirsty? So you're rebelling against your mother, so you're being kind to people?
Because no. But the thing is, there might be some truth in that, because she's incredibly she has improved with age. Bless her heart, she has improved with age. I've got to give her some credit. You know, she was a very judgmental person, and I over the last few years, since discovering more about my identity, that judgment has kind of fallen by the wayside, and I do my utmost to give people the benefit of the doubt. And only when proven wrong, almost, I don't want to say innocent before proven guilty, is a kind of an analogy to it. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
I think for me, I mean, outwardly, sure, everybody deserves their right to their opinion. I think inwardly, when I'm proven wrong, it hurts. It hits a trigger. It hurts my pride. It hurts fear. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart as this person. There's all kinds of internal stuff. So me proving somebody that they're wrong, me proving that I'm right, that I know best, it makes me feel better about myself. And I think I've struggled with it my whole life. Does it really make me feel better? I don't know. I mean, but that on the surface and internally, I think that's what's going on. And I think without awareness of that, I can't do anything about it. Now, recovery has taught me a lot of things. So I'm not in that spot, but I lived most of my life that way.
Yeah.
And so I still struggle with it sometimes. I like to be right. That is the truth. But can I let things go?
But I need to be wrong sometimes, Kurt.
Sure. How do I learn?
For me to be wrong.
Yes.
That's good. Yeah. Kate, you have something?
Yeah, I was also kind of going along that same line that me wanting my words to be eloquent and proving my point is kind of based in feeling insecure about, it is kind of a security thing. I want people to think that I am smarter. I want people to think that I am, that I have good ideas, and I'm trying to prove that I am like worthy, kind of. And so when I get to the point that I don't mind what other people are thinking, then I'm wise. I don't care. I don't need to prove to anybody what my point is. I don't mind. I don't care if I win the argument. Who cares about the argument? That doesn't matter. Then I'm at a point where, I'm in a better place in my mind because I'm not in a place where I'm feeling insecure, because none of that matters. And with recovery, I've gotten way more to that place. I've gotten into a much better place with that, though it still crops up, but I used to feel so much worse about those things before I was in recovery. It used to completely rule my life. I was way into how I looked to people and trying to present myself in a certain way. And I still worry about that. I think it's a human condition to worry about that somewhat, but
Agreed.
it's a lot better than it was, and it's something I still work on.
Thanks, Kate. Craig.
Sounds a bit like page 84. We've ceased fighting anything and anyone.
Yeah.
Not just alcohol. Page 84. Well done, Paul. Yeah. But just it sounds like what we really need to do is just surrender. And what everybody else is thinking, what everybody else is doing is none of my business. I need to remember that as well.
But, it takes a while from that to get from your head down to your heart, but it starts with that one action of giving, that one action of opening our heart, that one action, and let that grow. This is Stephen Mitchell, his notes on this. The master has no possession, which would be the next one. The master has no possessions. The more he does for others, the happier he is. The more he gives to others, the wealthier he is. The master has no possessions. These no possessions may include a house, a car, a computer, a room full of books, and an electric toothbrush. In other words, it's not talking about possessions. It's talking about possessions having you. Them owning you is what he's saying, I believe. The more he does for others, the happier he is, because he is doing it for himself. That goes very much with the Jonathan Starr, that he sees everyone as himself. Like, we're all part of this body. So when we help someone else, we're helping us. That same idea, I think. The more he gives to others, the wealthier he is. The less he holds on to, the more he can give himself to others. When he can give himself completely, his wealth is infinite. So, yeah, when we're not holding on to these things, trying to look good, everything about us, looking best, being best, blah, 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 and we can let go of that small self enough to where we can take someone else into consideration and put them before us for a moment. The more moments of the day we can do that, the happier we'll be. So that's really good stuff. Any comments? How about this last? The Tao of the Sage is work without effort. The Tao nourishes by not forcing, by not dominating. The Master leads. The Tao of Heaven nourishes by not forcing. The Tao of the Wise Person acts by not competing. If you want to get right with the Tao, help other people. Don't hurt them. The Masters always work with people, never against them. This idea of that we're nourishing when we don't dominate people. I thought that I had to be overtly helping someone, but I think what that may mean is that when we don't dominate people, we give them room to find the answers for themselves instead of us just dominating and trying to control and that whole thing. That we're leaving room. In other words, we're leaving room. Emptiness is the greatest gift I can give. The goal in giving is to help me. Creating space in the giver, ultimately about helping the giver. We don't think about it that way, but we're always helped when we help someone. So, all right. Anything else from this before we move to Wayne Dyer? I was going to see if there's anything in my Jonathan Starr that I wanted to.
We didn't talk anything about the nothingness of this whole thing, which is what Wayne Dyer talks about.
That's good. We're going to read him then.
Nothing. Living without accumulating. The final verse of the Tao Te Ching provides the closing message of this entire collection of ideas. You came from no-thingness. The place of your origination had no things. The place of your return is one of no things. That's pretty potent. Therefore, Lao Tzu is inviting you to replace the accumulation of more stuff with the celebration of your true essence. Just as nothing is pure Tao in its formlessness, the real you is that same formlessness. For you are the Tao. Learning that lesson clearly while being in quarantine. The Tao Te Ching attempts to attract you to a way of being that recognizes nothingness as the Tao. You could call it a God-realized way of being. In this final essay, I've chosen to propose that you access your non-being, Tao self, by living without accumulating. This means giving more, arguing less, and releasing your attachment to everything in the world of the 10,000 things. Ultimately, living this way even means letting go of your attachment to your life and your body. But you can practice this right now while you're still living in this world. St. John of the Cross speaks to this way of seeing your life. Quote, to reach satisfaction in all desire, its possessions, to reach satisfaction in all desire, its possession in nothing. To come to possess all, desire the possession of nothing. To arrive at being all, desire to be nothing. To come to the knowledge of all, desire the knowledge of nothing. All of this wisdom of nothingness comes out of the offerings of Lao Tzu, the ancient spiritual sage who wants us to experience the bliss of being all by knowing a non-accumulating place of no-thingness. It's difficult to imagine a world without things, yet in this final verse of the Tao, Lao Tzu takes you through what such a world would look like. You don't need beautiful words, since there is no thing for you to describe. There is no thing to argue about, as there are no possessions to fight over. There's no fault-finding or blaming for all that exists in the hidden virtue of the Tao. And finally, there is no thing to collect, amass, or accumulate, which leaves you in the state of creative giving and supporting. Heaven does good, says Lao Tzu, and good is a synonym for God, which is truly the same as the Tao. Meister Eckhart illustrates the interchangeability of the words God and Tao in this piece. God is a being beyond being and a nothingness beyond being. God is nothing, no thing. God is nothingness, and yet God is something. You're encouraged in this final verse of the enduring and amazing Tao Te Ching to do all that you can to imitate heaven while you're here in form. Try out these suggestions from Lao Tzu as you change your thoughts and ultimately your life forever. Quit accumulating points for being right.
Yeah, Craig.
We discussed that at length. Reduce yourself down to zero or no thingness. Observe your body and all your belongings, and then put them into the changing world context. Keep this statement from Mahatma Gandhi in mind. Quote, if you would swim on the bosom of the ocean of truth, you must reduce yourself to zero, unquote. So from a place of no thingness or zero, become the observer, seeing what you accumulate in the world of things. From this perspective, you'll find that nothing can ever truly be real in such a world. Practice this exercise whenever you're feeling attached to your possessions or your point of view. D.H. Lawrence dramatically captures this idea. Are you willing to be sponged out, erased, canceled, made nothing? Are you willing to be made nothing, dipped into oblivion? If not, you will never really change. And do the Tao now. I leave you with these words of Lao Tzu from Tao Te Ching, a new translation. Here's the final verse. The sage does not whore and thereby bestows. The more he lives for others, the greater his life. The more he gives to others, the greater his abundance. Copy these words by hand, study them, and put them into practice at least once a day. You will energize the flow of the Tao in your life in this world of 10,000 things.
Good stuff.
Most important.
Comments?
Give it away. Give it away to get it back.
Got to give it away to keep it, don't we?
Give it away. Give it away.
Yeah.
Give it away.
I was thinking about, Marla, our emptiness serenity prayer with this.
Oh.
You know, God grant me the emptiness to accept the things I cannot change, the emptiness to change the things I can, and the emptiness to know the difference. You know, I think as time goes on, I'm seeing God this as emptiness, really, not as all these other things, because that's where the gifts are, is when I become empty.
Yes.
It's not in me learning things like we talked about knowledge. It's in me being empty, me emptying myself. And the way I empty myself is doing for other people instead of doing for me. Because every time I do for someone else rather than me, decide to let them have their opinion without me imposing mine upon them. You know, all those things is really ways of me surrendering this small self, the little buddy, you know. And as I do that, that's where my abundance comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good stuff.
We are nothing.
Kurt.
You know, I was just going to say real quick, there was a place in here. Are you willing to be sponged out, erased, canceled, made nothing? Are you willing to be made nothing, dipped into oblivion? If not, you will never really change. That's pretty hardcore. And that's pretty, it sparks fear in me too. I liken that to when I did a death meditation, and a guided death meditation where basically I deconstructed my body, and it was very profound in that, I had tears rolling down my face. I was not able to say goodbye to anybody. And it was just, it was a practice in disintegrating. And it just makes me think of this and how, to do this, I guess you do nothing, but wow, the effort of not doing anything.
It is a crap load of effort, Kurt. It is not doing nothing.
Right.
It is doing nothing. It is doing less and nothing self-centered is what it's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a little chapter out of Real Power. It'll take me just a second. I want to read this. This is a book on business lessons from the Tao Te Ching, wrote by James Altry and Stephen Mitchell. They wrote this together. And this is on the 81st chapter. And I'm going to read just little excerpts out of this. There aren't any rules. There's only a way of being. If you use this little book as a guide, all you need to do is look inside yourself and determine what you should let go of. Then let go of it every day. The desire to know, let go of it. Practice beginner's mind. Learn how to not know. The need to be in control, let go of it. Control is an illusion. The more you seek it, the more it will evade you. The ambition for power, money, and prestige, let go of it. What you already have is enough. Remember, the wise leader isn't a victim of his ego. Thus, he makes no one else a victim. Instead of forcing his ideas and expectations on others, he creates a space in which others can do their own good work. Mindful that true words seem paradoxical when the mind is cluttered with untruth, the wise leader embraces paradox. By not forcing, he leads. By not dominating, he leads. By not leading, he leads. I thought that was pretty good.
I think in
this whole idea of just letting it go. Back to the same thing. We're ending with what we started with the Tao Te Ching, you know.
Yeah.
It's all about us getting out of the way, letting go of what we think.
It's very glaring in this time of this pandemic how little control we have. The people, I understand that people are angry and they want to get out because they have no control over this virus. It takes over. It's dominant. And we have no control over it, and we're getting pissed off about it. And everything else that's going on with it. This is a big life lesson. The whole thing is clearly showing how the Tao works, I think, for me, at least.
For all of us, Marla, if we'll just pay attention and start looking from our heart, a little more open-hearted than from our head. Tina, you have anything? We haven't heard from you yet today, dear.
Good morning. I love this. This is like perfect meeting to for right now, and just kind of an all-encompassing, I think it has also to do with who I surround myself with, because I try to surround myself with people who I trust with my, I guess, sobriety, because I'm a sponge, especially whenever I'm uncertain and in these uncertain times. And so I have to intentionally go, like with AA, stick with people who have my best interest at heart, and not just AA, but people that I know wake up every morning and say, God, guide me, higher power guide me. Or, they have the greater good in mind, I think. At least they strive to do that. And those are the people that I like to surround myself with, because I'm so susceptible. I feel like I can be susceptible to other people's way of thinking to a default, because I'm so uncertain about mine, which I'm working on and trying to stand more firm in it. But, someone will start talking and I'll be like, oh, maybe that's it, but it could be just off the wall crazy something. But I feel like I have this need to have it right, that I will listen, I will kind of take in everyone's and past, answers or thoughts and think, maybe that's it, maybe that is it. And I think I just need to work a little bit more on what I believe in. I don't know, maybe not. So I went through so many different feelings and thoughts throughout this meeting. But yeah, I love listening to what other people have to say. And I remember I was in a philosophy class, it was like an intro to philosophy, and somebody said, what if we're, all we are is some infestation of Earth, and we're here, and we just are multiplying and destroying it like a mold or something. And Like the picture of the emoji with the mind being blown was me. Like I was like, oh my God, what if we are? And I feel like that was the first time I was like, there's people out there that think way different than me. And I do not have this thing about life down. And I remember I just came out of a long breakup and I was like, you know what? I'm going to find out the meaning of life. I'm going to take this intro to philosophy class and I'm going to get the answers. And I laugh now because that's where I met my husband of 17 years, was in that class. And, you know, he was just taking the class to just because it was, you know, a freshman blow-off class or whatever it was. So there were so many weird conundrums in that by me trying to find out the meaning of life. And I still haven't found it. It wasn't in that class, but maybe it was just in finding someone to go through this life with. That
when you find it, let us know, please. Let us know, please. Message me.
I'll give you the link to my book and the Cliff Notes when it comes out.
Your Amazon link? You'll give me your Amazon link?
Yeah, I got it. But it's been awesome. Yeah, it was. Thank you guys.
Thanks. That's good stuff. Anyone else before we close? You good? Okay. Well, you guys have a great week.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars, and how to join the SRC and attend this meeting live. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with your friends in recovery.